translate the name of this dish directly, and you'll understand why we picked it for our Valentine's dinner this year. But really, this savory French stew is delightful year-round. So, grab some wine and a chicken, and let's whip up a romantic bowl of Coq Au Vin. We'll start off with 3 to 4 strips of thick bacon that I have sliced into about 1-inch lardons. Put that over medium heat. No additional oil is needed, just let that bacon fat render out. And we're going to cook this about, I would say, 80% of the way to crispy. We do want it to have a little bite to it. Set that aside. Now we're going to grab some chicken thighs and chicken drumsticks. Traditionally this was made with a whole old rooster, but I didn't have any of those lying around, so thighs and drums it is. We'll add our 4 drumsticks to the pot with the bacon grease in it, season them up with salt and pepper, and sear them for 5 to 7 minutes on each side. Really, we're just trying to get some really good golden brown color and develop a fond here on our chicken and our pot. Once those have some nice color, go ahead and get them out. We'll repeat this same process with our bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs. You really cannot make this with chicken breasts, at least not with boneless, skinless breasts. They would just be dry and chalky. We're going to get some nice color on that skin. We're going to render out a lot of that chicken fat. We're of course going to season it up with salt and pepper. Again, after 5 to 7 minutes, give those thighs a flip and give them some time on that second side, at which point we will then remove them from the pot and set them aside. Now at this point we've got a lot of bacon grease and chicken schmaltz in the bottom of this pot. We want to go ahead and reserve maybe a couple tablespoons of that for a purpose later on in the video. And if you have more than a tablespoon or 2 in your pot, just dump it off and get rid of it. But I had about 1.5 tablespoons left, so perfect. I'm adding in 1 large onion, which I sliced thinly, and then 3 to 4 medium carrots here, which I have chunked up into large bite-sized pieces. Seasoning every step of the way, I'm going to add in some salt and pepper and stir these around in that hot fat for about 8 to 10 minutes. At which point I'll add in 3 to 4 minced cloves of garlic and give everything a stir. You can see those onions are starting to soften. We get a great fond on the bottom of our pot. To add depth of flavor and richness here, I'm going to squeeze in a couple tablespoons of tomato paste and let it fry off right there in the middle of the pot for a minute or 2. Now let's talk wine. I had to go with something that had a chicken on the outside. It just felt right, but a Burgundy would be great. I'm using a Cabernet Sauvignon. We'll add in 2 cups of that right to our pot over medium heat, followed by a tablespoon or so of balsamic vinegar for a bit of tang, and 1.5 cups of chicken broth or chicken stock. We'll bring all of that to a simmer, and of course we'll scrape all of that fond off the bottom of the pot. We worked so hard for that flavor, we don't want to give it up. We'll return our 8 pieces of chicken back to the pot, trying to add them in as much of a single layer as possible, also getting all that chicken submerged in the wine and stock mixture. And finally, I've got a little bundle of thyme sprigs here. You could just add a tablespoon of fresh thyme or a teaspoon of dried thyme, but I've got it on a little twine there so I can pull it out easy. And we're going to simmer this uncovered for about 30 minutes. In the meantime, let's deal with those extra tablespoons of chicken and bacon fat. I'm going to put them in a skillet over medium-high heat, along with 8 ounces of cremini mushrooms here that I've just cleaned up and halved. We're going to add those mushrooms in and cook them over medium-high heat until they give up some of their moisture and go a nice golden brown. I also added a few pieces of our bacon in here to try and get it nice and crispy so I can use that as a garnish when I plate this dish up, but that part's totally optional. We'll get those mushrooms out and just let them set to the side, get that bacon nice and crisp. Alright, final step here is our beurre mani, or our butter and flour mixture. That's what we're going to use to thicken this up. So I've got 3 tablespoons of flour, all-purpose flour, 3 tablespoons of room temperature, or almost room temperature, unsalted butter. The warmer your butter is, the easier this is. You're just going to use a fork and cut that butter and flour together until it is homogeneous. Alright, I put a lid on my pot because I let it cook a little longer than 30 minutes and I didn't want it to evaporate too much. Once that chicken is tender and cooked through, go ahead and pull it out. Be a lot easier to thicken this with the chicken set to the side. We can remove those thyme sprigs as well. They've done all the work they can possibly do at this point. Thank you for playing. And we'll add in our mushrooms along with any accumulated juices and those bacon lardons. Definitely scrape all those good bits off the sides, scrape the bottom of the pot, and now we'll add in our cremini. Crank the heat up on this so it comes up to a simmer, and just stir very vigorously. As soon as this comes up to a simmer and you've incorporated that butter and flour, it is going to thicken up nicely and leave you with a luscious, shiny, glossy, beautiful sauce. At this point, the only thing you've got to do is taste it for seasoning and add more salt and pepper if it's needed. Alternatively, you could add in a splash of wine or more of that vinegar here at the end for a little bright hit of acidity. I'll add the chicken back in and, of course, any accumulated juices, and we are ready to serve. This is great all on its own, but it pairs wonderfully with a nice egg noodle like I have here. Mashed potatoes or rice would be great, a little side salad. I'm adding down a couple pieces of chicken, followed by some of that luscious, slightly thickened broth, garnishing it with some pieces of crispy bacon and a few extra little pieces of thyme. That is it, Coq Au Vin. Julia Child herself, I think, would be proud. So let's go in here. That chicken gets wonderfully stained from the wine. It stays so moist because we didn't overcook it, and of course it's dark meat, so it's really moist to begin with. There's a great sweetness from the wine itself, but also from the carrots cooking in that broth. The onions and garlic make sure that you have a nice allium flavor in every bite. The stock is rich. Again, I love this with noodles, but it's even great all by itself. So, hope you enjoy your Valentine's Day this year, whether you're flying solo or have a wonderful date. But most importantly, just make something delicious.